Welcome to Voting 101. I'm Concord Town Clerk Kari Maitari, and joining me today is Carlisle Town Clerk Amanda Moore. Today we'll be talking a little bit about our form of government and information about elections and town meeting that we hope will help you navigate the many options available to you as residents and voters. We have a lot to cover in an hour, so we will provide as much detail as we can and invite you to add questions to the chat feature that we will answer after the presentation. Let's begin with a general overview of how town government functions in Massachusetts. The distribution of duties will vary depending on the size of the town. In smaller towns like Carlisle, the select board holds appointing and budgetary authority and delegates duties to a town administrator who reports and receives administrative and policy direction from the select board. In larger towns or in towns that have adopted a charter or special act of legislature to define how the town is managed, there is a town manager who has much of the appointing authority and oversees the budgeting and capital planning process with policy direction from the select board. Select board members are elected by the voters of the town. Town meeting is the legislative arm of government that approves spending and borrowing to support the operating budget and capital purchases, adopts local zoning and general bylaws, accepts streets as public ways, passes resolutions, among many other items of necessity and interest to voters in town. Now, local elections are held every year for the purpose of choosing town officers. Any voter of a town may run for local office in their town. In Carlisle and Concord, candidates are nominated to appear on the ballot in one of two ways, either by town caucus or by nomination papers. The town caucus is a meeting of voters for the purpose of nominating candidates for each office to appear on the ballot, and any voter may attend. Nomination papers are available for candidates to collect signatures of voters to appear on the ballot. A specific number of signatures of voters are required by a certain date in order to qualify. The town clerk's office and board of registrars certifies the signatures of voters to make sure everyone signing is qualified to vote.
Any resident of a town who is at least 18 years old and a U.S. citizen is qualified to register to vote. In Massachusetts, residents as young as 16 years old may pre-register to vote. This normally happens when they receive their driver's licenses thanks to an automatic voter registration system coordinated between the Registry of Motor Vehicles and the state's voter information system. The town clerk's offices receive these notices and processes pre-registrations and voter registrations in that same state system. Once the pre-registered voter turns 18, we process the voter registration and send the new voter an acknowledgement notice, letting them know where to go vote. Besides automatic voter registration through the Registry of Motor Vehicles, there are 3 other ways to register. You may go to any town or city clerk's office in Massachusetts and fill out a voter registration form. The clerk will stamp the form as received and forward it to your resident clerk if you register in a community other than where you live. You may also mail a voter registration form to the town clerk's office. These forms are often available at libraries and post offices. And finally, if you have a Massachusetts driver's license or a state-issued ID, you may register to vote online. All voter registrations from Concord and Carlisle will come to one of us and we will process the registration, regardless of how you register. We are your resource for voter information, and we are always happy to help anytime that you have questions. Once you are a registered voter, you may vote in all elections and attend all town meetings in your community. To keep your voter registration active, you simply return your annual town census that is mailed to every household in January.
Let's talk about the positions that can appear on a local ballot in Concord. In Concord, there are 4 elected positions. All other boards and committees are appointed by either the select board or the town manager. That is defined by our town charter. This year, we will have 3 offices on the ballot. The Housing Authority will be on the ballot next year. And you can see here that we have 2 seats for select board, 2 seats for school committee, and 1 seat for moderator.
Carlisle has more offices on the ballot because there is no charter, giving some boards and committees more independent power than in Concord, which has a charter. Elected offices in Carlisle include the moderator, select board, school committee, planning board, board of assessors, board of health, and library trustees. This year, Carlisle has 6 committees with open offices, including select board, board of assessors, board of health, library trustees, planning board, and school committee.
The select board is authorized to call for a town meeting and set the warrant, which determines the agenda of town meeting. In smaller towns, the select board also runs the town and supervises town employees. In Concord, there is a charter in place that provides a framework for the town's governance and gives broad authority to the town manager to run the town and supervise town employees. The select board sets policy and strategic direction for the town, appoints many town boards and committees to help with town governance, and acts as licensing authority for liquor licenses and restaurants, car sales, and hotels and inns. If you've ever attended a select board meeting, you know that they also work to resolve issues that haven't been solved at lower levels and address matters that require the attention of the chief elected officials of the town. Now, generally, a moderator's job is to run the town meeting, making sure that all of the warrant articles or agenda items are debated and voted with proper parliamentary procedure. Specifically, the moderator declares the outcome of all voice votes. Some towns even have detailed bylaws governing town meeting procedure. Other towns leave a lot of discretion to the town moderator. The moderator in Concord also appoints the finance committee, and this position is elected for a 1-year term. The school committee reviews and approves budgets for public education. They hire the school superintendent and establish educational goals and policies consistent with state law and standards. School committee members are elected for 3-year terms. Now elected for 5-year terms, the Housing Authority develops and administers an adequate supply of low and moderate income housing for town residents and hires the executive director. One of the 5 positions is appointed by the governor, and 1 tenant member is appointed by the select board, which is why this position is not on the ballot every year.
In Carlisle, since the town does not have a charter, the select board has more oversight in the town's affairs. They serve as the executive officers of the town, and as such, they direct and manage the property and affairs of the town, appoint members of committees, and appoint certain town offices, including the town administrator. They also serve as the licensing board for the town and enforce the town bylaws. The select board in Carlisle is a 5-member board with 3-year terms. Similar to in Concord, the moderator in Carlisle prepares for and presides over the town meetings. The moderator declares the outcomes of all votes at town meeting. In Carlisle, the term for the moderator is 3 years. Also similar to Concord, the school committee is responsible for some of the administrative functions of the schools, including hiring the superintendent and reviewing and approving education budgets. They also establish educational goals and policies for the school. And this board is a 5-member board with 3-year terms. The planning board's work largely pertains to land use. The board reviews applications for subdividing land and creating roads, and they issue special permits for land use and development. For example, if you wanted to build an accessory apartment on your property, you would go through a hearing process with the planning board in Carlisle. The board also oversees the adoption of zoning bylaw amendments, and the board is a 7-member board, each with 3-year terms. The Board of Assessors is responsible for assessing the value of structural and personal property for the purposes of levying taxes. For example, they determine the value of your home and car for property and excise tax. The assessors maintain a database with information on each land parcel in the town. The Board of Assessors is a 3-member board with 3-year terms. The Board of Health is the board responsible for town-wide health-related matters. Its mission is to promote and protect the health of the community by promoting healthy behaviors and protecting natural resources. The Board of Health issues health-related permits, such as septic permits, food permits, and livestock permits. The Board of Health is a 5-member board with 3-year terms. And the library trustees is responsible for guiding the mission of Carlisle's public library, the Gleason Public Library. The mission of the Gleason Public Library is to facilitate lifelong learning and growth for all community members. They aim to achieve this by offering access to materials and services at no charge. The library trustees is a 3-member board with 3-year terms. So now we're going to pivot to covering different methods of voting in Massachusetts. Voting is easy in Massachusetts, and you have options. Voting in person has always been available and continues to be offered on Election Day. If you wish to vote before Election Day, or if you will be out of town on Election Day, you still have options. To vote by mail, you first need to apply. The deadline to apply is 5 business days prior to the election. Ballots that are mailed must be returned to the town clerk's office by 8 p.m. on Election Day. This is a chart that goes into detail about what to expect when you apply to vote by mail. Once we receive your application, we register you in our state voter information system, also known as VRIS, to receive a ballot by mail. We mail you a ballot, instructions, a ballot envelope, which you must sign and fill out as the voter, and then a return envelope to mail the ballot back. When you receive your ballot, you will mark your ballot, place the ballot in the envelope, sign the ballot envelope, and place the ballot envelope inside the return envelope to return it to us either by mail or dropping it off at the drop box for your town hall. Once we receive your returned ballot, we register that your ballot was returned and store your ballot envelope inside our vault until Election Day. All vote by mail ballots are delivered to the polls on Election Day to be processed. Vote by mail ballots are then checked in by an election worker by calling out your name and address so that you may be checked off the list as having voted. These are usually done in batches of 5. Ballots are then removed from the ballot envelopes without looking at them, and they are inserted into the ballot box. Ballot envelopes are retained by the office as election evidence. Let's talk more about how to vote by mail. As mentioned, you will need to fill out and sign an application. You can return it to us in person, by mail, or by emailing a photo or attachment of your signed application. You may also apply for a ballot by mail online. You may apply for one or all elections that will be held in a calendar year. And you must reapply every year. So if you select that you'd like to receive all election ballots for that year, you can do so. You would just have to submit another application the following year to continue that. This is a sample of Carlisle's vote by mail application. This application is available on Carlisle's website. And if you are interested in voting by mail for the Carlisle annual town election, we would need to receive your signed application by May 27th, 2025, so we can mail the ballot and have enough time for it to get to you and back to us. And this next slide is an example of Concord's vote by mail application. Their application is also available on the Concord website, and their application would need to be received no later than April 1st, 2025 to receive a mailed ballot for the 2025 annual town election in Concord. Now that we've covered some vote by mail, let's look at some other options of voting. If you are not going to be in town for voting on election day, you may vote absentee in person at the town clerk's office. You would need to fill out an application, and then you would be provided with a ballot and an envelope that you would complete right there at the town clerk's office. This option is available during business hours up until noon the day before an election. For state elections, early in-person voting is available. The days and hours of in-person early voting are available on the website, and they will vary town to town. So you will want to check your town's website for early in-person hours. During in-person early voting, you check in by giving your name and street address to the person at your check-in table. They will confirm your information and hand you a ballot, and you would take that with you to a booth where you would fill the ballot in and sign the ballot envelope. You would then place your ballot in the envelope and bring it to the checkout table. Another option for U.S. citizens living abroad, they have an option to apply and fill out a ballot electronically. This is called the UOCAVA application. So U.S. citizens living abroad would complete an application and send it to their local town clerk's office where they last lived in the United States. Then they would receive access to an online portal where they would be able to mark their ballot electronically and return it without having to print or mail any materials. Finally, polls or voting locations are open on election day from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. When you enter the polling location, you would go to your check-in table and provide your name and address to the check-in person, and they would provide you with a ballot. You would be directed to a booth where there is a marking pen that you will use to fill in the oval next to the candidates of your choice. After voting, you will either go back to a checkout table or you'll directly enter your ballot into the ballot box. There may be someone standing at the ballot box. That person is available to help you only if your ballot jams in the ballot box. The ballot box attendant will not look at your ballot. It is private, so nobody will know how you voted. You will also receive an I voted sticker to wear proudly and remind others to go to the polls.
Let's move on to town meetings. Town meeting is a legislative body and an event unique to New England states. It is a direct form of democracy that allows voters to have a say in how the town spends its money, passes local laws, and makes many other important decisions required of the legislative body. The Secretary of the Commonwealth has published a guide, which looks like the image on this slide, that is very helpful to understanding the process. And the Concord Carlisle League of Women Voters has some great information about this on their webpage as well. The town meeting warrant is the document that tells voters what will be discussed at town meeting. The select board decides what articles or agenda items will appear on the town meeting warrant. Town departments, boards, and committees develop proposals to present to the select board. And voters may also present proposals by petition, which means that they will gather signatures of other voters who want the proposal to be considered by town meeting. This is if the select board opts not to put the article on the warrant. When the select board receives a petition signed by at least 10 voters for an annual town meeting or 100 voters for a special town meeting, that proposal automatically becomes a warrant article without the vote of the select board. The warrant is then posted online and in certain locations in town. In Concord, the warrant will also be published in this week's edition of the Concord Bridge. To learn more about warrant articles before attending town meeting, it's a good idea to attend committee meetings or public hearings and visit our town meeting pages online. At town meeting, the moderator takes up articles from the warrant for consideration by the voters present. Each article sponsor poses a motion to be presented, deliberated, and voted. Voters may propose amendments to motions. They may ask questions and make statements supporting or opposing motions. Voters may also make parliamentary motions to end debate or refer an article to a committee, or even to end the meeting to be adjourned to another time. Importantly, the only way to cast your vote at town meeting is by attending. Town meeting in Concord often lasts for more than 2 days. As you can see, town government relies on committees made up of volunteers living in town. Carlisle and Concord have many active committees helping to advise policymakers, regulate land use, maintain health standards, and advance many important initiatives that make these communities thrive. To learn more about these committees, we encourage you to visit the town's websites, read the town reports and meetings, and maybe you'll find that you have time and interest to volunteer. Here are some resources for you to find more information about elections, town meetings, and your communities. These presentation slides will be available on our web pages after today. And we will now take questions through the chat feature. We'd like to take a moment first to thank members of the League of Women Voters of Concord and Carlisle who are hosting this webinar, and we'll read your questions unless we're able to see them. I'm not sure what the option was. Do we have any?
I don't see any questions in my queue here.
No questions here.
Oh, we have, it looks like Yvette has raised her hand. Do you want to use the chat? I wonder if she's able to use the chat. Okay, we're just waiting for a question. Yvette, did you have a question? How do we find out our zoning? So if you're wondering about how your property is zoned, that's something that you can check with the assessor's office. They can help.
Perhaps she's referring to precincts about where to vote.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Precincts, you can find out from, oh yes, it is. Thank you. For precincts, you can find out from the town clerk's office. You can also look online through the Secretary of State's office, and we have a link on our webpage to find your voter information. And also when we send out acknowledgements after people register to vote, they will get an indication of their precinct, as well as on census forms. And I should mention that March 28th is the voter registration deadline for our upcoming election at 5 p.m.
And our voter registration deadline in Carlisle won't be until May 8th.
Okay, so the comment is, yes, we will have a Zoom recording available. That was the question. And so we do have a map online, and it is not interactive at the moment. So I can work on that, getting making our map interactive that we have on our elections page.
And there should be somebody at the polls who could direct you to your proper precinct as well if you just showed up at the polls and you weren't sure.
That's a good point too. Are there any other questions? Residents who, so in order to register to vote, an individual needs to be a resident of the town, at least 18 years of age, and a U.S. citizen. So with those qualifications, a person may register to vote.
And it's important to note too that in order to vote, you do have to register to vote. So you want to take the step to register to vote first, and then you'll be able to go and vote in the elections.
And we do have speaker notes that we can make available, as well as a recording of this. We can provide the question is about translating the today's discussion into Chinese, and we can, I think the speaker notes you can probably work with to translate. All right, are there any other questions?
Yes, the
Presentation
slides.
Sorry, go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, I was just going to say they will be available as well.
We'll have them available on our web pages. All right, this concludes today's webinar. We thank you very much for attending, and we hope that you found this information helpful.
Thank you very much, everybody. And of course, we're always here if you have any questions. So never hesitate to reach out to ask a question.